Today we're here to check out the 645Z from Pentax, medium format camera that replaces the 645D. Now often in product updates there's not much, just a slight revision. Despite the physical similarities, a whole lot has been updated in this one. Let's check it out. Okay, so before we actually get in and test out this beast, let's run through and see what has been updated and what this has to offer.
First things first, big upgrade on this guy is the new sensor. Up from a 40 megapixel CCD sensor, it's now a 51.4 megapixel CMOS sensor. That's the same sensor as in the Hasselblad H5D50C and the Phase 1 IQ250. The move to CMOS technology allows for higher ISOs. This has increased the maximum ISO setting from 1600 to the ridiculous 204,800. It's got 27 focus points, up from 11. The frames per second is up from 1.1 to now 3. It does have basic video settings. It's got a bigger and higher resolution screen, which is now articulated, as well as connectivity improvements such as the inclusion of HDMI output and USB 3.
So obviously a whole lot has changed since the old model, and the new sensor really interests me. Going from 40 to 50 megapixels really isn't much, and that's with all the developments in technology over those years. Think of the D800, when that came out it took things from 12 megapixel to 36 and it did it well. I'm really surprised by the modest increase, and I'm expecting that it should mean fantastic performance, coupled with the fact that they've gone from CCD to CMOS technology.
The first thing that struck me about shooting with the 645Z was just how practical it really was. You wouldn't think of it as a strobist camera, but using it outdoors, handheld with my Cactus triggers, it just worked a treat.
Look, hand-holding with this on location really isn't a problem. It's a shade under 2 kilos with the 55mm prime, but that's not much bigger than a professional series DSLR with a big lens on it. In terms of hand-holding, I'm hand-holding with off-camera flash at a 40th of a second. It's not a big deal. Keep in mind this has a reverse crop factor to take into account. But the deep hand grip really makes it a viable option for shooting on location without a tripod.
I think we all know what we're really here for. Let's take a look at some images. The image quality coming off the 645 is astonishing. That's a 100% crop. Of course, you're losing something in the compression onto YouTube, but they're using the off-camera flash a huge amount of detail. Now keep in mind the smaller depth of field you're getting here. There at f4, the fall off as it falls across her cheek is just astronomical. Here we go at f9, and going in on the 100% crop on that one, there's just a phenomenal amount of detail throughout the skin and skin pores. This is a kind of setup that if you're going to 100%, you're going to realize so much detail through people's faces, it may actually make editing a headache for you.
So as I mentioned, the 645Z does have basic video options. I'm filming on it now. That said, I can't imagine anyone's going to be dropping $8.5 on a fantastic stills medium format camera for the video option. Sure, it's cool to have that as an option, and to my knowledge it's the first medium format digital to offer it, but it's really basic in terms of what it has. It does have microphone in. The image quality is okay, but considering what the sensor's capable of, not fantastic. So it's a nice to have, but as well. So people often talk about a medium format look, and it's true that all other things remaining the same, a bigger sensor will yield a shallower depth of field. When you think of, say, the Nikon range, a DX camera has a 1.5 time crop factor due to the smaller sensor. This has a reverse crop factor of about 0.8. So this 55mm lens has an effective field of view of about 45mm in 35mm speak. And speaking of 35mm, let's throw this head to head and compare it to the highest megapixel one in that line of cameras. Unfortunately, Nikon Australia still haven't made the 810 available for press review, months after it's available to purchase, so we'll be doing it with the D800E and the 55mm Otis. So this is a combo of the camera and lens of around $9,700 US. The D800E and the Otis is about $7,300. So in the same kind of ballpark.
So we went through and did a series of different shots in studio and outdoors with the two different combos. There are differences, of course, because of the field of view and the depth of field. We tried to minimize those and keep it as comparable as possible, and I'm really impressed with the results from both of them. Let's make this fun again. These are crops where I've tried to cancel out the different resolutions so it's harder for you to tell. There's image 1, And there's image 2. So one of these is the Pentax 645 with the 55mm and the other is the D800E with the Otis. Again, 1. And there's 2. Is there an obvious one that you prefer? Well, let me tell you, the Pentax 645 is image number 2. So here it is on the full shot. Beautiful tonality. You can see the great drop off in terms of depth of field. Just beautiful. And then here we go, this is the D800E with the Otis, going in 100% on that one. You can see still crazy amount of detail. I think the lens is definitely sharper, the Otis, compared to the Pentax lens. But switching back to the 100% on the Pentax, you can see that extra resolution really helps out. You can come in a lot closer and there is lovely fine detail there. That was shot at ISO 100. Let's see what this can do in terms of high ISO. Here I set up a shot of some flowers, bright and colorful, because I want you to pay attention to what happens to the degradation of color with high ISO beyond just the little bitty bits that start coming in. So let's go up from 100. Here at 200, 400, and 800, the files are looking really good. I'm really impressed. This has been a big falling point for medium format cameras. Even here at 1600 and then 3200, there isn't too much noticeable loss here. This isn't 100% crop, but it is cropped in somewhat. Here at 6400, to my eye, it is starting to fall away. I would try and keep it under 3200 as you get up to 12,800, 25,600, and up. And up, of course it's falling apart, and just for shits and giggles, here at 100 and 200,000, obviously just falling to pieces as you would expect. As a portrait photographer, of course color is vitally important, but so is tone and fine detail. Going in here, I just want to make it clear to you, there at 6400, we've already lost a whole lot of fine detail from the beard. At 12,800, absolutely unusable in my opinion. 100,000, obviously not, and at 200,000, just look what it does to the skin tones. It looks like Aboriginal dot art. Okay, in terms of downsides, the viewfinder is only 98%. On a camera of this caliber, you would expect 100. That said, the viewfinder is just massive. Again, keep in mind the huge sensor size in this one. Also, the shutter speed maxes out at 1/4000th of a second. It's common for medium format cameras to have a lower top shutter speed, but that still could be an issue for some people. But the big issue is the flash sync speed. This will only let you sync it up to 1/125th of a second because it doesn't have the same style of leaf shutter of other medium format cameras. The Hasselblad that shares this one sensor will do 1/800th of a second, and Mamiya have some that'll go up to 1/1600th of a second. So that's really can be an issue if you're shooting outdoors at a fast aperture to only be able to sync at 1/125th. And lastly, it's a small thing, but dual SD cards. Really? I mean, it's such a massive camera. There wasn't a space in there for compact flash cards. It's not a big deal, just if you're making a leap from full frame DSLRs to something like this, you probably have a huge collection of expensive compact flash cards anyway. They do generally have a higher transfer rate, although the SDs are certainly getting up there, but that's one thing. So all in all, taking those small things into account, I think it's really usable and certainly an interesting camera. So look, at $8,500 and a brand new system for people to be considering. This is no small investment. We're talking serious money here, but we've got to keep things in perspective. The Hasselblad that shares the sensor of this guy is $27,500 compared to $8,500 for this. And the IQ 250 from phase 1 is $35,000, and that's just for the digital back, not the actual body of the camera. So in terms of medium format, this is actually a real entry-level price. Look, 3 things that really make me think that this is a practical option for people that may have written off the 645D is 1, the increased frames per second, 3 frames per second. You know, there were times in studio where having more than 1 frame a second was handy, but it's very rare that you're gonna need more than 3 frames a second. This is not a sports camera. The other thing is the hand holding is improved. Overall, I think the ergonomics are better than the 645D, and hand holding at slower shutter speeds, I'm more confident doing it. The old one had such a rigid and jarring shutter action. This seems like it's been softened out a lot. There was always the worry that at that huge shutter, slamming up and down would introduce vibration on slower shutter speed handheld shots. Don't have that concern with this one. And the other thing is huge improvement in playback performance and overall speed. The old one,
it would be locked up for a couple of seconds after every shot as it thought about the file before it could show it to you. It's not perfect still, there is a delay, and there were a few times even using really fast cards where there was a slight pause to try and see it back, and the time when you're putting it into live view for, there's little pauses that you don't have on a DSLR, but it's a trade-off. I have to say, if you want to go beyond 35mm resolution without, going into $20,000, $30,000 price ranges, then this is your option. And I do think it's a really, really nice option. Having seen what you can do with the D800E, which is not the latest generation of technology, there's the A10 out now, but with the world's best glass on it, the differences are negligible. I think if you were shooting with a 35mm like a D800 with standard Nikon glass and then comparing it to the Pentax with the Pentax glass, this would really, really outshine it. But it has obvious resolution advances. The image quality off the sensor is just beautiful. You do get that medium format look, even though it's not a huge medium format sensor in the realm of 645 sensors. It's really, really nice. Is it for you? Well, you need to wait and see what's coming out, see what's going to happen, how these sensors are integrated into the other bodies, and see if there is a huge image quality improvement that justifies those triple and quadruple price tags, and what else is coming out from the rest of the market. But for now, if you're looking for a CMOS medium format camera at an entry-level price for that range, and 50 megapixels is about the ballpark you're after, then I think this is a really, really usable, viable option, both in studio and outdoors, and it really is hand-holdable, which for me is a big deal. Leave me your questions and comments. I'll see you soon.